Good evening and welcome, dear friends. Welcome to episode 3 of an AHA conversation. We have with us Dr. Divya Chhabra today. And before I introduce Dr. Divya with our audience here today, I would like to share that the AHA conversations are about bringing some AHA moments in your life, bringing some wow in your life. And we hope the next hour, hour and a half, we are able to bring some wow in your life. So thank you very much for all of those who are joining us. We are live on both Facebook and YouTube. We will take questions along the way. So please keep posting your questions. And we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. Our conversation today is also on the current situation and how you can unleash your potential and your immunity. So let me begin with first formally reading out Dr. Divya's bio. And then I'll tell you a little bit more. But here's the formal bio for you, which I'm reading. And there are some words which I found very difficult to pronounce here, so I'm going to fumble. So please be prepared.
I'll help you.
All right. So Dr. Divya was born in 1967. She was introduced to homeopathy at the age of 7 months. In the middle of a severe intractable colic that the pediatrician suspected to be volvulus and said, if so, surgery may be called for. Her mother, in calm desperation, opened up Dr. Bishambar Das, a family friend, book and brought the first 3 remedies that matched the symptoms of colic. The second was the bullseye similimum, Dr. Divya, I got it right. Okay. And the colic was history. Perhaps from there was born not only the passion for homeopathy, which I have been privy to. I have to say, I haven't seen a more passionate doctor in my life for homeopathy, but the unwavering quest for the bullseye similimum, the perfect constitutional homeopathic remedy for the patient. After graduating as a gold medalist from CMP Homeopathic Medical College in Mumbai, she did her MD from DKMM Homeopathic Medical College. She did her residency at Mumbai Devi Hospital and at Bhartiya Hospital, where she gained intensive care experience as well. To fully understand the scope and application of the homeopathic remedy, she has researched 10 new homeopathic remedies, which are being used currently worldwide. Her evolving methodology in the quest for perfection has one constant: the exploration of the unconscious as a controller of disease patterns. And that this is particularly of interest to all of us here today. We're going to talk about the unconscious. The pinnacle of her work is the leap of the similimum method she practices today. Her patients absolutely love her, trust her, and will take homeopathy instead of going in for surgery. I can tell you there are numerous patients who actually avoided surgery with Dr. Divya's medicine. I avoided a couple of small ones, but there are others who avoided the big ones. Her love for medical practice is matched by her zeal for teaching. To this end, she has since the last 26 years been teaching homeopathy in India and around the world. Many parts of the United States and Canada, Boston, New York, Toronto in Europe, Moscow, Berlin, Finland,
etc.
Sorry?
I said etc.
etc. And Australia, and there's such a long list, but you traveled a lot and you must be really missing it during these COVID days. So I wanted to remind you of all the countries that you traveled actually for you. And a mom, a tea addict, a classical dancer, an avid reader. She almost spoiled Martina Navratilova's career. She kept asking her coach, how far is she from Wimbledon? whatever she does it beautifully, amazingly. And, I have to say that I met Dr. Divya 17 years back. And the one word that keeps striking, that I can use is excellence. I mean, she was in quest of perfection, of excellence, and she was passionate about her work, but also very compassionate. My wife was actually her assistant, and the compassion that her clinic and all her colleagues demonstrated towards individuals, towards patients, was unparalleled, even at 11 p.m. at night, so many times in distress. So commitment, passion, excellence is what defines Dr. Divya. She's had a huge impact on thousands of lives, and I'm hopeful that for all of our viewers here today as well, you're going to enjoy this conversation. And in this very turbulent period where we're all dealing with a lot, both at the physical level and the emotional level, we will find some answers, some solutions. We'd want you to go back after this conversation with some concepts, with something that you can do to live better and to truly unleash your potential and your immunity. So welcome, Dr. Divya. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
we are honored to have you here with us. And I'm just very eager for our audience to hear a little bit from you about your journey. I know it was homeopathy when you were 7 months old, but tell us a little bit about your personal journey. What drives you to work like till 11 and 12? I know your clinics will be open, and and sometimes, even at 2 in the morning, and then you'd be up in the morning. And so I have seen that passion. What's driving you? Tell us a little bit about your personal journey with both medicine and healing.
So I always wanted to be a doctor, right? And I think a lot of us as kids want that. But for me, this feeling and passion persisted. When I lost my allopathic medicine seat by 1 mark, and took homeopathy, it was not a big issue for me because in my mind, I always eventually wanted to do homeopathy. The other two fields that fascinated me always were psychology and neurology. In my grade 12, my fantasy was of becoming a neurosurgeon, right? As we started the ladder of growth in homeopathy, like everything else, we moved from the superficial to deep as time went on. The superficial was simply the symptoms that are the expressions of our disease. As we went deeper, and homeopathy being a holistic science, we realized that the mind and body are one, that we cannot separate the symptoms of disease on the body from the state of the mind. And this was the first rung in that growth in the understanding of disease and homeopathy, where the mind and the body influenced each other. As we worked deeper into these cases, we recognized that hiding behind this mental picture that we all have, the symptoms, the stress, the emotions, lies something a little hidden, which we are at most times not consciously aware of. And this then introduced us to Freud and Jungian concept of the unconscious mind, where it was recognized, and we saw it too, that it was what is hidden in the unconscious that actually created the problems at the physical symptom level, as well as the patterns of behavior that were a problem that couldn't be sorted. So when something comes from the conscious mind, stress, emotion, situations that you don't like or want to change, you're consciously aware of it. So even though there is stress created, it is in your control, and you have the ability to take an action, to inhibit it, to explain it, to rationalize it, and move ahead of that. But when the origin of the stress or the emotion or the conflict comes from the unconscious mind, then our consciousness has no awareness of it. And hence, then we have no ability to control it, to change it, to inhibit it. And then we are like puppets, and our life and its patterns move in the direction of that unconscious while we desperately try to walk on a path that our conscious mind is charting out for. And in the end, we often find that we started out on a chart that was for the conscious mind's goal, but ended up something somewhere completely different, and we had no idea why. We often then look back and blame the world, blame situations, blame the economy, blame the government for the change in our life. But we don't realize that that change of path or that movement towards the wrong path happened because it was motivated from our own unconscious. This, as we moved ahead and the field of medicine and science also moved ahead, the unconscious mind, which is an abstract entity, moved into a more definitive, clear, scientific entity, which is actually the automatic brain. Because as we began to understand the functionings of the brain, we realized that this conscious mind that we talk about is part of our conscious brain, while this automatic mind and its emotions are all part of another part of the brain that functions automatically, that we can't think and change it. This new and old brain, as the understandings of this came forward in the modern medicine, in biology, in homeopathy too, we move towards recognizing that it is stuff that is happening in this automatic brain that is triggering our entire body functions and creating the end point, which is the disease. It is at this point that I am today, from starting from the movement of what is purely the symptom to really the deepest level of our neural circuits that are built up in childhood. And we are not even aware of it, that motivate our patterns of behavior, emotions, and our physical disease. The Pavlovian model of disease and homeopathy is where I am right now. The understanding of disease as a psycho, neuro, endocrine, immunological axis deviation is where I am right now. And it is a point of great excitement, not just for me, but I think in the world at the moment, there is this great excitement because a lot of what we or medicine in general considered incurable is today in your hands. Because earlier, while everybody talked of genetics, right? If you have the genes, then your cholesterol will go high. You have the genes, to heart ka to problem hone hi wala hai. This was like fate, you can't do anything about it. And suddenly now, with the onset of the field of epigenetics and the understanding of the brain, we realize that the brain produces chemicals, little protein molecules, that act as a switch to put on a gene. Only then the gene will show itself. So you can have a cholesterol gene, but nothing may happen to you lifelong. Something has to happen to trigger off that chemical, and that then puts on the switch of the gene, and then you get a cholesterol problem, which therefore means now genes, to change them and manipulate is difficult. But to find that switch that put it on and put it off is much easier. And it is this field, this excitement that is palpable in the field of medicine, but also palpable in homeopathy. So every day is a new day. Every day I kind of wake up and I feel like, oh my God, there's so much more to do. There's so little that has been done, and there's so much more to do. And that just fills me completely with a sense of excitement.
It is so exciting. I only thought that I could switch on or switch off the fan, but you are telling me that I have a switch now. And I was kind of feeling my head here, and I was like, and this is so amazing that, with all the work that's happening, like you said, with neuroscience and with all the other areas, that we actually have the power to determine, our destiny in some way, with the thoughts that we think. And I always questioned over the years, where is this coming from? You know, I mean, there was no reason for me to be so upset right now at 40 or whatever the age. And like you said, this is coming from when I was probably 4 years old and something happened and I got programmed in a certain way. So,
Absolutely.
So it looks like there is hope, Dr. Divya, and that's what we want to focus on. There is hope for everybody who's on this watching here. Yes, sorry, you have a comment.
No,
I have a question, but
you put that actually very beautifully. It's because when we get upset in the world due to whatever, you know, there is a war happening, something happened with Nepal, China, COVID, the government, right? Or your staff or the car or your neighbor. And we're really upset. Every time we're upset, not only are our thought processes stop, we are unable to function. The chemicals in the body change, the organ function is damaged for that period of time. So often this persists for a period of time. Barely do we get out of it and something else happens and triggers us. And we look around the world and say, this world is a shit place, everything is going wrong, kya kar sakte hain, stress to hoega hi. What we don't realize is that as we were growing up as children, our automatic brain, which is programmed to pick all the impulses from perceptions and the sensory stimuli, that means from the visual, smell, taste, sound, is picking every moment of our life and imprinting it into the limbic system of our automatic brain as snapshots, Instagram shots, or little YouTube video clips. In these YouTube video clips, everything that happens at that moment gets included and connected together, even if it isn't connected. So for example, if I was drinking milk as a child, and while I was drinking milk, somebody came and pushed me and it all fell and I was scared, in my mind, the milk will get associated with that fear, with the palpitations, with that sick feeling, with that things falling, with that whole anxiety state, while actually the milk has nothing to do with it. But because our brain functions like this, and that function has an efficient purpose, but everything comes at a cost. And the cost to that is that it puts these information that happens at one moment together and connects it, and then we reap the repercussions of it continually as our life goes on. So as our life goes on and this milk appears to that person at different points in his life, he's going to react to that milk with that anxiety, with that sick feeling, get lactose intolerant, get ulcerative colitis, get irritable bowel syndrome. But actually the poor milk in his system didn't really cause a problem right from the beginning. It's just that it got linked to that emotion of fright. It produced those neurochemicals, that the neurotransmitters that go and then affect the digestive system. And now that link has become an unconscious, automatic, fixed link that continues and runs its movie again and again while we have no clue. So outside you might be just, saying, oh, what a lovely day. It's a nice day in the evening. And here somebody brings you this nice cup of milk with some elaichi, and you suddenly start getting palpitations and, you suddenly start feeling unwell and you start feeling sick and you wonder what's happening. And then you start looking at different reasons. Maybe she said something, maybe the news I was reading, maybe mere ko jo message aaya. Actually, it was none of those. It was this milk that triggers an old circuit that was stored in the automatic brain. And we in the conscious part of our brain have no idea that it is there. If we could recognize, and we can recognize this pattern that has developed, our conscious brain sends neurons into every circuit in this automatic brain. And the moment we realize it, we can look at it and inhibit it, break that circuit. And as we break that circuit repeatedly, it disappears. This is how we recognize and actually prevent disease as well, not just cure it.
That's the switching off function that you're talking about. We can
right.
stop the brain from sending that protein.
Yes.
That will then upregulate the gene, the disease gene, that will keep the cell healthy. So when I switch off, I'm essentially stopping the brain from sending the protein to the cell, and the cell remains healthy. The cell was naturally healthy. Is that what you're saying? And that we, by our thoughts, made the cell receive a signal that upregulated something within the cell and made it unhealthy. Is that right?
No, you're absolutely right. The cell and its program naturally is in a perfectly functioning time, values, perfect functioning machinery. It's not the thoughts, because thought is a function of our conscious mind. It's a part of that brain that is in our control, right? We think and we do. So if we could think and change it, then we could change everything. The problem is, it is in that part which we are not in control of by conscious thought. We can take control of it by putting our attention on the five senses and moving away from thought, right? But thought by itself cannot control it. Moving away from the thought will bring it to the awareness, and then we can control it with our thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think this is so insightful and encouraging. I mean, in this time of COVID, I had two sets of questions really for you. One around our immunity and the other around our potential. And since we talked about unleashing both, maybe we can start out talking about our immunity, because we are all kind of concerned in many cities around the world today. COVID's kind of reached a lot of people. And there have been a lot of questions, Dr. Divya, around homeopathy and immunity. We've seen, names of homeopathic medicines being shared, etc. Can you explain for our audience how homeopathy works with COVID?
So I'm going to take it from the beginning, and I'm going to talk about what is immunity. When we talk about immunity, what do we mean? Basically, our body has the ability to fight infections. Like, this body is an amazing set of machinery. Not only do we digest food, create energy, breathe, have a heartbeat, walk around, create new ideas, but we also have an inbuilt mechanism that will prevent us from falling sick. That is our immune system. It's part of our blood, which is in the form of the white blood cells. These white blood, like in your blood test, you'll read RBC, WBC. That WBC part is what is our immune system. These are 3 or 4 different kinds of cells that work differently. One of them produces a chemical that is going to go and destroy any invader. Invader meaning a bacteria, fungus, virus, parasite, anything that is not your own body cell. The moment it will enter it, this chemical will get produced, and this will go and kill or remove that organism. These chemicals which kill this parasite, virus, bacteria are what we call antibodies. So you are hearing right now that soon we are going to have antibody tests. And when we have these antibodies, we know that we are immune, because it's a weapon. So it's like, once our white blood cell is trained that this particular virus needs this weapon, this antibody, it is there in its memory. And thus, when this virus now enters the system, it produces this antibody instantly and doesn't even allow that virus to make its home in the body and the organism, which means it will block it from even entering and doing anything to you at all. Right? Now, this immunity is what the aim is for us to build up. How are we going to build this immunity? Right? Now, this immunity will build up as we think, as time goes by, through herd immunity. Herd meaning a large number of people will get the milder infections or the infections without symptoms. They will produce this antibody, and therefore they will now be immune. As more and more people have this antibody, they will be the people stopping the chain of transmission. It's like the virus needs that human chain of transmission to go around. So supposing we are 10 of us in a room, right? And say 8 people are already immune, or even 7 are already immune. The virus can go from one to the other, but at a point it will get blocked. There will no longer be that chain of transmission continuing. As this happens, this virus will eventually die out. And that's what we look for as we are gradually opening the lockdown and moving out. The threat, however, is that while opening this lockdown, if the serious cases, which are about 10% of our cases, if those, the ones that drop oxygen, get pneumonias, ventilator cases, the ones senior citizens or immunocompromised, if these people get this and become serious and the critical number of cases go higher, then we will be in trouble because our death rate goes higher. However, if as we move forward, the numbers of milder cases go up, which they will, but the number of criticals stay the same or even start dropping, then we know we are moving in the right direction. Some lives will be lost, but in majority, very quickly, we'll move to a position where the younger, more immune people develop the immunity and become the people stopping this chain of transmission. This immunity ability to fight any organism is beautifully programmed in our human body. When we talk about medication, like allopathic medication, our problem right now for allopathy is that they don't have the right antiviral for this virus, right? And the same thing happens when a new virus comes because they don't have it for that new virus. Our body doesn't have this kind of problem. It has a program that can adapt to any number of different viruses that form, right? It can adjust and create antibodies to multiple, some that we don't even know of exist today and will happen in the future. As these different organisms enter, the immune person, the person who has a good immunity, is able to recognize the invader instantly, produce the correct type of antibodies, very quickly recognize which is the most effective one, and then use it to full on remove that organism from the system. This is what we mean by a good immunity. Now, the people who don't have this good immunity are people who are already ill. So let's say hypertension, diabetes, right? Other immune related like cancer or what we call autoimmune diseases like arthritis, colitis, many autoimmune diseases we have today. These people already, their immune system is compromised. It's already weak. And then in the presence of this new virus, they are not able to respond quick enough. They're not able to attack and get rid of this system. These are the people who can get more serious infections. The high level of medications, that allopathic medications that people are on today, also affect its immunity. So steroids, people who are on steroids is an immunosuppressant. This suppresses your immunity. People with allergies take it to suppress the immunity. But when you suppress the immunity, you run the risk of when a virus like this is attacking your system, you will not have the arsenal to attack it. And therefore, to maintain our general good health is what we call good immunity, so that we can fight whatever, not just this COVID-19, but whatever other challenges the world and universe may have for us in the future. Homeopathy has the ability to act directly on the immune cells. There have been research papers where the homeopathic remedy has shown that it acts on the macrophages as well as the lymphocytes, the two different kind of white cells, activating them to produce those chemicals that destroy and kill the organisms. You've been hearing with this COVID, cytokine, right? That is what is produced by immune cells, and homeopathy directly activates the immune cells to produce this kind of cytokine response. Hence, in general, to be able to maintain your health for the future as well, this is a good time for people who thought, main homeopathy lunga at some point, jab time hoga, I will take it. This is a good time to find a good homeopath near you and start that your immune system is set up to handle any kind of challenge that the world tomorrow can offer. In this present time of COVID, a very interesting phenomena happened. While homeopathy is an individualized medicine, which means that if 10 people come with, say, diarrhea and they've all eaten, say, at the same place, but each one shows different symptoms. Those symptoms come from your own body reaction, your own system reaction, your system showing where things have gone wrong. It's a bit like if a car gets spoiled, right? The mechanic is hearing the sound of the engine, and from the different sounds of the engine will tell you where the problem is. So even if you'd say engine kharab hai, that is too broad, what exactly is the fine tuning that is required varies from person to person with homeopathy. However, epidemics, pandemics like COVID-19 have historically been written down as exceptions. From the time of the Spanish flu to the cholera, homeopathy has documented that when epidemics like this with full intensity come on, they overpower the entire area's immunity such that everybody throws up the similar kind of symptoms. This in homeopathy we call the genus epidemicus, which means one medicine will work as curative for every patient with that COVID-19 or that particular epidemic situation, and work as a preventive for this kind of phenomena. I had only read about this for 25 years in homeopathy. I had read and appeared for exams saying genus epidemicus, never seen it. For the first time, as I saw COVID-19 cases starting from March, where there were US and Canada cases, to my surprise, a very unusual remedy showed up. That remedy is called Cymex. Now, I'm going to say something which is probably going to shock a lot of people. But homeopathy makes medicines from plants, minerals, as well as animal extracts, because from time immemorial, we know that animal saliva, blood has lots of healthy or medicinal capabilities. Cymex is made from a bed bug, a khatmal. Now, this khatmal saliva actually has very interesting things. It has ability in its saliva to have changes in the clotting mechanism of the system. At present, it is understood that COVID-19, one of the issues in COVID-19 is that it affects the bleeding and the clotting mechanism of the body. And that's what creates a lot of the crisis. So this bedbug saliva actually has direct effect on this bleeding and clotting system. It also acts on the immune system, producing the similar cytokines and interleukins that are needed for this particular viral infection. When I looked at the homeopathic symptoms, the symptoms like those fever with chills, complete lack of taste, severe body ache, the headaches, the burnt taste in the mouth, all these symptoms matched with the symptoms of COVID-19. So here I was seeing a match with this remedy at the level of homeopathic symptoms. I was also seeing a match at the level of the pathophysiology, the actual like crude substance and the effects of this. As I was looking up and I was wondering, what is this bedbug? Why is it there? And I came across a very strange fact that the bedbug is the cousin of what is called a bat bug. In fact, the bat bug and the bed bug are so similar that it requires an experienced zoologist under a good microscope to be able to tell you the difference. They both come from the same genus Cymex. Now, this was not a coincidence, for we know now that this COVID-19 virus was originated from a bat, which then passed to another intermediate host and finally to the human. This, I thought, could not be a coincidence. Not only is there a match at the level of homeopathic symptoms, but a match at the pathophysiology and a match at the very origin of the virus and the origin of the organism. And this remedy I have been using since March, Cimex lectularis as both treatment and preventive for cases with very good results. We have been using it even cases with drop of oxygen on ventilator cases. I wish we could use it for more cases and save more lives. So if any of you have cases, have patients who require it, you have our email and contact number. Do call us. We'll tell you how to access this remedy. As a preventive, everybody under the age of 65 takes the Cimex 1M twice a day for 3 days, repeats after 7 days, and repeats this entire cycle of 2 weeks after 15 days. If you are above 65 or 70 and have low immunity because of blood pressure, diabetes, then the medicine required is Cimex 200, just the strength changes. If there are children, younger children like infants, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, again, these people should be given the Cimex 200. Patients who are on ventilators with very low oxygens or have other complications of thrombosis need the 30 potency. I've given you a basic broad idea. However, please go ahead and email us or speak to us if you specifically want medication for the prophylaxis or for the cure, and we will show you where you can get the medicines from very, very easily. So this COVID-19 epidemic has a genus epidemicus in a homeopathic remedy that can specifically program those white blood cells to be ready and geared up to attack that virus and not allow it to get into your system at all.
Great. Well, that is fascinating. And we know that remedies are diluted significantly. You know, this is not like just picking the saliva from the plants and sending it over. So if you can just share that, because I was thinking, should I take this?
No. I thank you very much for bringing that up. I didn't mean to say it so much as I shocked you by saying your medicine is prepared from the bed bug. We prepare medicines from many things like snake venom to common salt to sugar. The medicines with homeopathy are diluted to a really high level, which means that if we take a 30 strength, which is a low strength, I take a drop of the chemical or the alkaloid or whatever the substance is, 100 parts of a medium, dilute or solvent medium, mix these together. A process called succussion, where we hit the bottle, creating froth against glass, is performed. Then again, 1 drop is taken from this, diluted to 100 drops of the solvent. Again, this process of succussion is done. For a 30 potency, this entire process happens 30 times. For a 1M potency, this entire process happens 1,000 times. Scientists and chemists laughed at us. And they would say, at the end of your 1,000 dilution, there's nothing left. You've gone beyond the Avogadro's number. Kuch hai hi nahi. Pani or alcohol or sugar hi bacha hai. This is placebo, right? However, in the last few years, in fact, it was Mumbai IIT professor and his PhD student, Chikramane, who looked at the homeopathic remedy under a specific microscope and recognized what chemistry knew already, nanoparticles. These nanoparticles are extremely powerful biomolecules, and they are produced by this kind of hitting, creating bubbles against a glass medium. Exactly the process that intuitively the founder of homeopathy did 200 years ago, even when the concept of nanoparticles was completely unknown. Hence, even though it's like the khatmal and the bed bug, and you're like, do I really want to take the remedy from it? It's not really the crude substance. It is diluted to the point that they say isme to kuch bacha hi nahi hai. And all that is left is the powerful biomolecule, the nanoparticle.
Dr. Divya, we'll take one little comment, quick comment from you on Pooja Jain is asking, please comment on camphora pills. I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah. So there are many different homeopathic, not many, I would say about 4 or 5 different homeopathic remedies being talked about. The first, which I also advised right at the beginning of the epidemic, is one that we use in homeopathy, which is a general prophylaxis for many infectious diseases, and that was arsenic alb. Ayush is still advising that we give arsenic alb. As we began, different homeopaths began to work on the COVID-19 cases. Some homeopaths have come to the remedy camphora and they find it extremely effective. Whereas I have found that Cymex is extremely effective. Why is this different? Why this difference in homeopathy? What happens is homeopathy is a highly specific, very, very subtle indications that give you what we call the remedy that will cure a particular case or a patient. We call it the simillimum, right? Now, it's actually like from a huge distance, hitting right at a bullseye right in the center. And that's why, as a joke, we would often say in our class that if you put 5 homeopaths in one room, they will never agree on a remedy for the patient, because there are so many subtle little variations. And this is the difference that is probably happening with the COVID-19 as well. That out of camphora, arsenic alb, Cymex, and maybe some others have heard sepia, etc. One of them is probably the bang-on central remedy, while the others are just so close, just around it. Or perhaps none of them are right now, right in the center, and each of these is just so very close. The beauty of this, though, is that in homeopathy, when you give the remedies that are just so very close, they are at least 90% as effective. And as you take that medicine when you are under treatment, as with a homeopath, in your follow-up, the homeopath can recognize, array, we had to move one step more, right? This medicine will be the 100%, right? So it's because of the highly subtle and yet very, very effective little symptoms of homeopathy that this kind of variation happens from homeopath to homeopath. And here it is, follow what your homeopath is advising you. And those who don't have a homeopath, follow what I'm advising you.
Great. Well, I'm going to actually come back to some questions that our friends have been sharing a little bit later, because I do want to cover a little bit about, you know, the aspect of unleashing our potential in this time of survival, where, you know, it's all about, you know, bach jao, somehow survive this COVID. And, you know, I mean, nobody's talking about potential and unleashing our potential. What is that potential? Can we be any more than, can we do anything more than play hide and seek? How do we realize our potential? What are 3 things that you would say we could do currently to unleash our potential? And I do want to share with our audience that, you know, I'm sure Dr. Divya has some fascinating thoughts here, but from where I come, you know, we've, as a team in my organization, we've really been thriving in the last 3 months, because we realized that it was possible to go beyond survival. So the reason I even asked this question and asked Dr. Divya to tell us how is because I've been fortunate to be part of a 40-50 member team that has really thrived in this situation, and we've kind of gone beyond this survival. So, Dr. Divya, your thoughts on how can we unleash our potential as individuals, as husbands, as wives, as brothers, as sisters, as professionals? How can we unleash our potential?
So I'm going to take this question from where you started it, because it's all linked, right? And I'm going to take it from survival, right? So basically, we've evolved from the primitive man. In fact, we've evolved from reptiles to mammals to the primitive man. And as we've evolved from the primitive man to the human being that we are today, we carry as part of our neural network an entire part of our brain that is mammalian and reptilian. It functions exactly how the mammals functioned and the reptiles still function, and how the primitive man in the jungle functioned. In other words, this part of the brain is primarily involved with survival. This is that old brain that also controls your body function, right? This old brain and the automatic brain that we were talking about when we talked about not recognizing what's happening is exactly this. This old brain controls our body function, has our primitive reflexes for survival. That is, you put your hand in hot water and it is going to get pulled out. You hear a sound and you suddenly startle, ki kya hai, kya, kaun aa gaya, right? This is our primitive survival mechanism brain. Primitive is not as a derogatory term. It just means old over here. It's very sophisticated. It's just old in time. The newer part of our brain is what we as the Homo sapien uniquely have. That thinking brain that allows us to think, ideate, plan into the future, go to Mars, make all kinds of amazing thoughts, inventions, artistry. This is that part of the brain. As we've moved from the wild jungle into this jungle of today, where the need is different, we've shifted our focus from this primitive brain into the new brain, and we focus on thoughts, analysis, what to do, and the knowledge. The problem is that our survival circuit, our immunity circuit is still in that primitive brain. We've changed very rapidly. This world has evolved in the last 100 years at a dramatic, rapid pace. The body circuits don't change so quickly. And therefore, while the world outside has changed so much, our circuits for that survival and immune response have stayed the same. And that circuit, which is that survival circuit, is you're out in the jungle, tiger is coming to eat you. Run! Breathe fast. Heartbeat must go up. Sugar must flood your system, right? So that you have your muscles get energy, sugar, they get oxygen, blood supply. Your eyes dilate so you can see the enemy better. The hands and feet go cold because the blood stops going there and goes totally into the vital organs that need it, the heart, the lungs, and the muscles at that time. So the entire system is beautifully geared to allow you to make your escape from this wild predator that's going to eat you if you don't run away really quickly with a burst of energy. At this moment, the immune system is completely suppressed because you don't need it right now. If you died, your immune system is not going to be of any help to you. So you better shut that up and use entirely your energy, sugar, glucose into the parts that need it. So everything goes full on into run mode, fight and flight mode. And everything else is shut down for that short temporary period of time. As soon as that situation is over, the tiger is gone, right? Or you're dead, one of the two. The immune system comes back into operation, your heartbeat comes to normal, and then you're fine. Next 2 weeks, nothing will happen until the next tiger is going to come, right? So our system was very well geared up for these short bursts of really terrible stress, and then a longer period of entire calm, where the body was allowed to regenerate, build its immunity, calm down, and come to a very positive, healthy state of being. Now our world is such that there is a new stress every moment. Today, if COVID this happened, tomorrow lockdown is open, numbers are going up. Now Delhi this has happened. Now somebody has committed suicide there. Now China is doing this. Every moment there is something new that is happening, creating stress, unending. If that's not it, your bai has not come. Should you call your bai? She comes from a containment zone. The neighbor has no staff. They are insisting we are going to call driver ko bulaye na bulaye. Which shop to buy stuff from, how much to wash the vegetables. Each of this creates a different level of stress. But our response circuit to deal with that stress is that same old circuit. We have no other circuit. That same adrenal response and sympathetic nervous response, which is the fight and flight, we go back into that. We have not yet, maybe another million years, we'll have the little different circuits. One for the maid not come, one for infections, one for stock market collapse, one for fight with your spouse. But right now, doesn't matter what this is. You cannot find your socks or the entire world is collapsing. We have still one circuit, that same fight and flight response, which means that and especially in this COVID-19 time, this automatic brain's stress response, the fight and flight response, is in a constant overdrive, constantly working day in and day out, not being allowed to come back to its baseline normal. Our entire stress response is balanced by two kinds of parts of the brain. We learned this all: sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic we know as adrenaline, jaldi karo, that response. And parasympathetic is that calm down, where the body comes back to normal, gets time to heal whatever was injured, and the immune system is allowed to come. Now with the unending stress, the stress cycle is running constantly, which means the immune system is in a constant depression, not being allowed to come back to its normal. And this is the extremely dangerous thing in this moment. That while on one hand, we are faced with this kind of virus that is pretty deadly, our immunity is our only protection, and yet every day looking at news, talking kitne mare, kya hua, kya hone wala hai, kya kare, what we are doing is systematically, daily depressing our immunity further. And therefore, the number one vital thing to recognize is we need to let go and not constantly keep listening to news, keep listening to what's happening, keep talking about it all the time. Get the information you need, let go, move on. Allow the system to get back into its parasympathetic healing immune mechanism. As we move ahead and towards the end, I will give you also simple tips on what we can actually practically do moment by moment to activate in 5 minutes our parasympathetic, which will allow our system to come into a calm mode and allow the immune system to go up. Now, when we talk of our potential, we're still talking about these two brains. That's the fun part. We're talking about this thinking part of the brain, and we are talking about this automatic brain, right? Potential, what we are able to do, our uniqueness as a human being is hidden in these two areas. The thinking brain is the one that allows us to do good stuff, right? We do good things, we work well. This we do by discipline, impulse control, good planning, right? Set things in a system. We call it top-down approach, right? Executive control. It's like, this needs to be done, make your list, systematically go through it. Don't allow yourself to get up till your work is finished. Time yourself. Shut your phones. Don't look at anything. Don't distract yourself. And you reach a certain level of competence, certain level of potentiality. And as we do this constantly, we are better and better at it. And yet, that moment where the individual's truest potential breaks the bounds of what he could have ever imagined or anyone could have ever thought he was capable of. The eureka moment, that aha moment, that moment when you are more than you or anyone ever thought you could be, actually comes from this automatic brain. Athletes call it being in the zone. It is that time when a person works for a few minutes with constant focus and dedication and slips into the automatic brain where now time doesn't matter. You're not hungry. You don't hear anything. Nothing matters but what you're doing. You are so immersed in that moment that nothing exists. Thought, ego, usne kya bola, COVID ho raha hai, nothing matters. Just the experience of what you are achieving. Could be writing a book, could be playing a sport, could be doing a computer game, could be cooking a dish, could be repairing a chappal, could be cleaning something. But when you do it and reach that moment, that is sheer perfection. That is excellence. That's when you move with your own momentum. It's effortless. It's everything happens the way it should happen. It's like whatever you need just seems to come in front of you. The roads open and you move along with an energy that is far beyond your conscious thought. That is one's true potential. Reaching those moments are not every day, right? But as we aim for those and reach them and focus and experience them and activate those neural pathways, we will reach them more and more and more. When we reach those moments, we are in pure health. We are in health, mental, physical, social, emotional, spiritual. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to meditate. You don't need to take the medicine. You don't need to say, kya karu main? You don't need to do anything. It's all happening by itself in that right place. So the ultimate for total health and potential is one. It is reaching that zone, that space, being in the flow, that aha moment where you go beyond what you could have thought. Later, if somebody asks you कि तुमने ये लिखा कैसे, you'll say पता नहीं, ये मैंने लिखा क्या? I don't know. I don't know what happened, right? I don't know how this happened. You look at it wondering, was I capable of doing this? And you look at that work again and again, and it's perfect. You can never find a flaw. You can't say, "Arey yaar, main abhi aise karta na to better hota." No, it's just the way it should be, and you marvel that it came from you as that being. That was the feeling when Archimedes jumped out of his bathtub. So they said and said, "Eureka, eureka." It didn't matter where he was, whatever the temperature was, COVID hai, kuch hai, nothing would have mattered to him. It was just that moment when he saw, and the bathtub flotation, everything was just one. Just that moment counted. That's perfection and excellence. And that if we work for in whatever we do, if that's our aim, the world cannot but be a much better place in every aspect.
Great. Well, this is, I can see a couple of questions on how can we reach there? How do I reach there? But what you're essentially saying, and for all of our viewers, coming into that present moment and the noise stops. All the noise in the head, and you're just with what you are doing in that moment. Is that where we are, Dr. Divya? Is that a fair interpretation?
Absolutely. Every noise stops.
Yes, so you've completely embraced the present moment. And that really also, there was a question earlier as well around meditation. Can meditation improve immunity? And it really is, meditation's really helping us get to that being in the present moment. It's a practice in getting to the present moment. So it's beautiful that you share this, and I can, now that you share it, Dr. Divya, I can go back to those moments when I am in that zone. And so what you're saying is, all of us in this COVID era, this noise about China and COVID and cases and the maid and the mother-in-law and the socks not being found or the tiger coming, we can actually switch off and we can just go into that zone. And that's where we realize our full potential. We basically come into the present moment. So now,
and when you beautifully pointed out that there's no noise, Ganesh, I want to point out that there is no noise external and internal, right? And so often we blame everything on the external noise. But in reality, the external noise comes and goes. When it lingers within us, it's because it's triggered our existing internal noise. And it's when we stop putting our fingers around and point it at our own internal noise and begin to recognize where from our unconscious, automatic, unaware part of the brain that noise is coming from, then we reach that point of, you can call it meditation, you can call it perfection, you can call it aha, you can call it nirvana, it doesn't matter. There is no word for that moment. It is just that moment when everything ceases to be. It's just that moment. Time, the biggest experience of that moment that, scientists have tried to document it. Actual documentation is auditory input reduces, right? So they test it by auditory evoked potential, because auditory information stops going in, number one. And time loses its meaning. You have no sense of time. These are those two classic objective things which tell you you are cruising in that zone area.
That's why at 11:30 in the night, when I've been with you in the clinic, it feels like it's 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm getting itchy with, and frustrated with all your questions. Yes. And you seem to be, you have a family at home, you have all this going on, and you seem to be in this eternal present moment. So I think for all of us, I think many of the people are commenting here as well, they have experienced what it means to be in the zone. So essentially we have to either get some cloning therapy done with Dr. Divya's genes or whatever, or we have to start practicing some method, which you have to tell us now, on how do we come into this present moment and cut this noise.
So like when you said at 11:30 in the clinic, right? What is the biggest thing for getting in the zone is, one, what you are doing, you should feel strongly about it, right? You must feel emotionally strongly about what you're doing. That's the first criteria. Second is, the skill set required should be slightly above what you have already been doing. If it's something that you've been doing every day and you can do it, there's boredom there. It doesn't trigger that point. It cannot be too difficult, because then you get frustrated, but it has to be above your existing skill level. Then you shut out the outside noise. Shut your phones, shut the doors, shut all the different browser windows, and shut that conscious mind off. And pick one thing, right? Don't do two things at one time. Pick that one thing at that moment and keep at it for 15, 20 minutes nonstop. 25 minutes is what they say. Keep at it 25 minutes nonstop without allowing anything to come from the outside. Inside, before we start this, put attention on the automatic brain, which is put your attention on the 5 senses at this moment as well. When you take off your headphones and put your attention, say, on the sounds from the outside, maybe a crow, maybe the sound of the wind, maybe the tree, maybe your air conditioner, maybe the bartan over there. Put your attention totally on every little sound. Feel the cold or the heat or whatever is coming at you. Feel the chair, feel the texture of the chair and the pressure. Feel that part of your body which is probably uncomfortable. Feel that dryness in your mouth, which you wanted to drink but you weren't thinking of. Put your attention fully on the five senses. Whatever you're seeing at a distance, smelling, tasting, touching. As you do that, thinking automatically stops. The focus automatically shifts into this automatic zone. Taking this as the starting point, as you then move into that one task for 25 minutes with complete one focus, there comes that moment when zoop, you go off into a circuit where it's now into that moment, where it's like you can, the thoughts and the information and what you're doing is happening at a speed but doesn't seem fast. You know, it's a speed that's enjoyable. There's excitement, you feel it, you don't want it to stop, you're enjoying it, and it's not tiring, it doesn't feel exhausting, it feels completely rejuvenating. And you know, Ganesh, I learned this from the Mochi opposite Homeopathic College. Wow. I came back from the hospital duty and my chappal broke, Kolhapuri chappal. So I quickly had to eat lunch and I had to then go back to my class. So I came to this guy and I said, "Arey, jaldi se kar do," because I was like, I started flapping and walking with this chappal. He took the chappal, then he thila thokod, then he began to stitch that thing that had come out. Now I had like 10 minutes left to eat and go. So I said, "Bhai, jaldi karo na, mujhe please tum fatafat maar ke de do na." He told me, "ऐसे नहीं कर सकता हूँ, यहाँ मेरे दुकान में से जो चप्पल जाएगी वो एकदम नई लगनी चाहिए, उसके बिना मैं नहीं दे सकता." And that's what, and what were we paying him? Like 25 paisa at that time, right? He didn't care. I was like, "Yaar, tu kar. My lecture is unimportant. Khana is unimportant too." It was hot, 1:30, sunny. I'm standing with my feet on that rasta. I said, nothing mattered. With such focus, dedication, he took that sui dhaga, hammered every nail, then polished my chappal. And then because he polished this one, he had to polish the other one now because this one looked new and that looked old. So he had to polish both of them. And then I gave him that 25 paisa and that look on his face, the job well done. To him, nothing mattered. Kitna time gaya hai, garmi hai, 25 rupiya de, 25 paise ka kaam hai, yaar maar ke de do na ek killa. This was not it. That's everything you do can reach you to that moment. It doesn't have to be some dramatic scientific discovery or a eureka moment like Archimedes. It can be just the way that guy did that chappal. For me, that is perfection. And as you rightly said, there is nothing that drives me or I am totally in awe of than when I see perfection in anything that is done with this form of care and excellence. That's that moment. And we've all, when you say, how can we reach it, na Ganesh, we've all felt it. We've all felt it in our lives. At different moments, we felt it. All we need to do is get more aware when it happens, recognize it for ourselves, and use that as our goal. Most of the time now, we've caught up with this part of our brain. And our life is in this executive control. Na, abhi hum log, maine aaj itna kaam kar liya, ye khatam ho gaya, I finished all this work, you know, I did so much work. Do you get it? So it's like at the end of the day, you feel a satisfaction. Maine itna sab kiya. But that was not the aha. Do you get it? So when we shift our focus from maine 10 kaam khatam kar liye to main wo aha moment kitni baar pahunchi din mein, that's when you'll reach it. And we'll all reach it.
Beautiful. We are all of us at the AHA movement are trying to bring AHA moments. The AHA movement is really a collection of all of these AHA moments. Absolutely. And you know, it's so true that all of us have felt it. It could be a game of badminton or, you know, It could be just playing, doing something at home. It could be cooking. So, this is very much possible for us to, it doesn't have to be the big prize that I won one day. It's everyday living. And some of the comments here, I just want to highlight some of those comments. And one of them, talked about how you make medicine sound, love the way you speak. You make medicine sound like some sort of, I think she's trying to say music or, and that's the truth. When you actually fall in love with the present moment and with what you are doing, there is such magic that can manifest. So I'm going to Dr. Divya. I think I know you wanted to do a process with us.
Ganesh, before can I just say something to that question? Like, you're right that everything that we do in that moment is music, it's art, it's science, it's everything together. But when you pointed out about medicine, I want to say the homeopathic medicine, the finding of the homeopathic medicine, right? Or finding, which is the same as finding what's in childhood got stuck in your neural circuit, which is now manifesting later in life, both in patterns of behavior and in disease symptoms. The finding of that is like a detective hunt. It is like a Sherlock Holmes movie where we start from the patient's life and symptoms today and trace it back to their life in childhood through the memories in the limbic system that are stored, like flashbacks. We all get, na, arey, yaad hai hum log 10 saal ke the to udhar gaye the. You know how it looked, you remember the house, you remember everything. That's because this memory in this brain stores everything like a visual. Now, finding from over there ki what thing has ghussaud and changed a natural neural circuit, which the results of which we are seeing right now, and sorting that out is the correct homeopathic remedy, is detective work. And it's exciting. It's completely the most exciting thing to do. So more of you should become homeopaths. If you have kids here, you are listening.
Listening to you speak, I'm reminded of that dentist I once met in Hyderabad, who was 26 years old and who said, I'm fed up of looking at ugly teeth for 5 years. And, and when I looked at all the other dentists that I had gone to, particularly my dentist, he was in a state of trance when he was working with my teeth. It was almost like artistry. And, and he was completely with you, having a conversation, thoroughly enjoying, always smiling. So it's so beautiful what you, and just watching you speak as well today for all of our audiences. I think we all have a sense of what you are talking about. We just basically have to practice it. I do want to take one question from Abir Khatri. He says the zone where the potential is unleashed could be a good zone, even if disease and imbalance, even in disease and imbalance, a person is zoned out. So is this a kind of paradox of the automatic brain? If one is trying to achieve the former zone, then how to shut out the latter zone? So,
and this is an interesting question. I'll just clarify it a little bit. I know Abir, so I understand the question a little bit. You see, the point here is that when we talk about unleashing this potential in the automatic brain, you see, in this automatic brain is also the imprints from childhood. So the noises that create problem also can become louder at that time, right? And here comes this interesting paradox that there are these noises as you are trying to reach the zone. And yes, sometimes you just reach the zone, doesn't matter if the noises are there. And as you keep reaching the zone, those noises automatically get inhibited. On other times, it is these noises that can actually stop you from reaching that zone. So if the question comes, what stops us and what can help us? Again, homeopathy can. again, recognizing what circuits that have got imprinted, which are now acting up, and therefore that noise repeatedly will again prevent you from reaching that. Going back to doing inner child workshops or inner child experiences, therapies, where you can recognize in the periphery what was happening at a moment in your life where you might have been upset, emotional, scared. That's okay, but it's what's happening in the periphery which is unlinked to that actual event, which gets stuck and has no reason to be there. If a dog attacked me, yes, I'll be afraid of dogs. But just because I was holding a doll when that dog attacked me and now I'm petrified of dolls, that's where the noise comes. That's where the problem is. And as we recognize that, we realize, अरे ये doll तो कुछ था ही नहीं, this was not a problem at all, मैं क्यों बेचारे doll पे हमेशा react कर रही हूँ. And that's when all this noise stops. One more shackle falls away and you can move freely towards that highest point of potential that you want to reach.
Wonderful. I think, Dr. Divya, this is a great time for us to do the exercise you wanted us to do.
Yes.
And then we'll see if we have a couple more questions. We could take those. And then we'll, yes. So please go ahead. Over to you.
So I think meditation really helps. However, whenever people ask me that, and that's why when you said, can we do meditation? I said, I don't really meditate. And when people ask me why, I said, I don't feel the need to meditate. If I can reach in my clinic, in a case, right, in every case, if I can reach that moment, where I'm like this, you can look at it in my body language, in my eyes. I know that I've reached that point. I don't feel the need to meditate. Yet, what is it that I would do or I could advise which can help you to, one, build your immunity instantly? What is it? Like, we recognize we're in this stressful moment, stresses are happening. It's good enough for me to say, don't get into that zone. But news is happening, somebody's constantly barraging you with it. Your stress circuits are getting activated. What can we do in a short, effective manner? So once again, recognizing that there is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is that fright and flight, where your blood pressure is going up, your pulse is going up, you're breathing fast. And the parasympathetic is what brings it back to normal. At sympathetic, the immunity becomes zero. At parasympathetic, the immunity is at its peak. In other words, we want to shut this mechanism off and activate this parasympathetic mechanism to not only bring down our blood pressures, cholesterol, sugars, but at this moment, bring our immunity to its peak. And because the vagal, you understood as we talked of this whole sympathetic, parasympathetic, I said, we breathe faster, heartbeat goes up, sugar is flooding the system, hands and feet are getting cold because the blood vessels are constricting, my eyes are dilating. Now you see, out of all these, this is all part of one chakkar. One starts, each one follows. It's like a set program, like a washing machine program. एक बार on किया तो washing cycle, drying cycle, rinse cycle, end point तक जाने ही वाला. Just that way, each of these is linked like a dominoes. एक चालू होएगा तो टक 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 दूसरे चालू होंगे. तो यानी कि हम इसमें से किसी एक को अगर हम लोग कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, किसी एक पॉइंट पे तोड़ दें उसको, तो सर्किट टूट जाएगा. It will break. If I cut this circuit at any point, I'll stop that domino effect completely. Now, where can I stop it? I can't stop the heart. I can't say, "Abhi heart, yaar, tu thoda kam beat kar." नहीं चलता है. I cannot tell my pupils dilate, constrict हो जाओ. I cannot tell my fingers, blood vessels, by blood जाओ उधर. I can't tell the blood pressure तुम नीचे हो जाओ. This none of this can do. Even urination stops, by the way, at that time. I can't tell a urine start. I cannot do any of this. The only thing that we do have conscious control of is the breath. And thus, when we consciously slow the breath down, multiple different meditation talks of breath, Vipassana talks of breath, Lom Vilom in yoga talks of breath. It's a simple principle. You take 3 breaths in at a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And release it to a count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As you repeat this, what you're doing is you're deliberately slowing down your breath. As you're slowing down your breath, you're stimulating the vagus nerve. As you stimulate the vagus nerve, the adrenaline axis is stopped. The circuit and domino effect breaks, and everything will come back to normal. Pulse rate, blood pressure, sugar, urination, dilation, everything from that one moment will come into the parasympathetic zone. As it comes into that rest zone, all the damages will start getting repaired. Your immune system will again reach its peak. Thus, if we do 5 breaths like this 3 times a day, or in moments when you're realizing, I'm just feeling, it's that moment when I know how I call it for myself. It's that moment when I feel out of control. It's like कुछ मेरे हाथ में नहीं है, कुछ हो रहा है, things are happening, and it's like I'm overwhelmed. It's like overwhelmed with things. That's the moment to just stop and take 3 breaths like this. Shortest time that you have. You do 2, you do 3, you do 1, you'll instantly bring down your parasympathetic nervous system. Second, again, I want to stimulate my parasympathetic nervous system. So when I shift my attention from, come on, I have to do this, karo, and I shift it to, like I told you, the sounds, the light on the trees outside. I can see those little fluttering patte. Peep, one car went peep. A kawa just flew from there. One more car did peep, peep. I'm putting the attention on all the sounds in the periphery. Again, everything slows down. You have stimulated your parasympathetic nervous system, right? This is used in meditation, nothing new. All I'm doing is telling you that it is stimulating this parasympathetic nervous system. Every time you do that, you not only feel calm, but your immune system is absolutely at its peak. As you do that, and again, I'm saying, let's all breathe, keep breathing. As you're breathing, put your attention, rather than on me, on the sounds, smells, feel of the air, feel of the chair, things that are touching your body, which normally you're not even conscious of. Put your full attention now on from the sounds in the periphery to the feel in the body. Keep breathing. Hear the sounds in the periphery. Now feel the different things touching your body. Hear the sounds in the periphery. Feel the different parts of the body. As you'll keep doing this, you'll become aware of some parts of your body that are feeling an ache or feeling a tightness. For some of you, it might be the calf. For some, it might be the neck. For some, it might be the lower back. For some, you might feel it on your palms and your soles. The effect of the sympathetic nervous system is to tighten your muscles because you have to run, right? So your muscles all get tight. As you put your attention on this parasympathetic nervous system, those muscles that are tight come to your awareness. Now, when you get up from this, breathe, open your mouth or open your eyes, come back to the present moment, stretch those particular muscles, whatever you've learned in yoga, in Pilates, in your normal stretches. If it's your shoulder, just stretch it. If it's your calf, stretch the calf. If it's your back, stretch it out. If you're feeling it in your hands, take a ball and just rub it. those hard muscle, ball massages, or just a massage on your neck. As we're doing that, we are stretching out each of the muscle fibers or the soft tissue fibers. As we stretch this, again, we are stimulating the vagal nerve, the parasympathetic nerve. Then we are stopping that stress receptor mechanism and reactivating the healing, immune, relaxed, high immune point. So just simple 3 things that everybody has been telling you. Yoga is good, meditation is good, breathing is good. I'm simply telling you why it is good. It's good if you want to know. For me, scientific knowledge for everything is vital. And here, when I understand that I'm stimulating my parasympathetic, I personally do it more effectively. And just doing that for like 3 minutes, stretching that particular part once a day, brings your immunity, and which stays up for at least 12 hours at that point. So just simple things like this, these 3 steps, bring up your immunity. Repeatedly doing this on a daily basis or doing it 2 or 3 times a day also will take you to the zone. Because as we do this, we naturally shut our thinking. We start getting aware of the body. As we get aware of the body, the neurons there go straight into this automatic part of the brain. As we then start doing whatever we are doing, we are stimulating that part of the brain. It's called the anterior cingulate gyrus. We stimulate that, and that's what takes us to the zone. So actually, if you ask me what takes you to the zone, you can take a basically electrical thing, put it in that anterior cingulate gyrus and stimulate it. We'll all reach the zone, zoop, instantly. But rather than that, you can first activate this automatic part of the brain by doing these 3 things, then start the focused action that we are doing, because then from this larger area, we are stimulating that area which is that cingulate gyrus. As we repeat that, it moves to the front part of it, which then is when you work on that front part, it's what takes you into the zone. Because when you reach that front part, all sound, smell, taste stops, because the neurons coming from everywhere get blocked. And then you're able to just function totally at a high speed, and it produces dopamine, serotonin, which create a lot of joy and stimulate further for you to keep doing what you're doing. So it's all actually chemicals and neurons, and just knowing which one to tweak when, that it's all in your hands. It's all fully in your hands and in your control.
Yeah, well, this is so empowering, Dr. Divya. Thank you so much. It's you're really telling us that we are in charge. There isn't this external greater force that determines our destiny. That we can really determine our own destiny, that we can create our own reality. And these very simple practices that you've shared are going to be invaluable for us to understand.
Ganesh, we do create our reality anyway. The problem is we don't know it, and we end up creating a reality we didn't want at all. Now the difference is we recognize that we create a reality, and now make sure we create the reality we want to create. Jung said, if we do not make the unconscious or the automatic part of the brain conscious, it will control our lives, and we will then call it fate. Right? But when we recognize this brain, and it's not difficult, putting attention on 5 senses, and your attention is on this brain. That's all. Shift from thinking to this automatic brain, and you have instantly got control over this automatic brain. Breath, again, is the only direct way of getting control over that. Dr. Newton always says mind is a monkey. I like that phrase of his, right? Mind is a monkey. And that monkey mind is going to keep working. You can't stop it. But you can shift your attention away from it and let it do its nonsense by putting your attention on this part of the brain through your breath and 5 senses. and of course through homeopathy.
Absolutely. I can vouch for that. I got married to a homeopath 17 years back. Courtesy her, I met you. And I don't think I have, I barely remember having a Crocin as well or any other medication during this time. So I think there are a lot of.
You also forgot to say that it was this working at 11:30 at night that could have either made and break your to-be marriage or me and Preeti's association. But luckily, we went into the zone, and both the things have cruised along beautifully.
Yeah, fortunately, Preeti was also my teacher on this path. She converted a brash, freaked out brain into, she got the brain to get coherence, and she got some of it from you and then, distributed it. So we were like the tertiary beneficiaries of your wisdom. And I am honored that, after 17 years, we can laugh about that and have this conversation. But, any final message for our audience? I have a few things to share, but, what would you, is there something that you'd like to leave us with?
First of all, I wouldn't like to leave you, number one. If left to me, I will go on talking. I mean, I think I've just said what I wanted to, but what I do want to say is that the understanding of the brain, its connection to our behavior, our understanding that our behavior comes from within us, not without us, not only makes our lives more enriched, fulfilled, but also prevents disease. Dreams play a big role in helping us to recognize what's going on in this automatic neural circuit, because dreams are our almost direct window into the automatic brain. Hence, if you are patients of homeopaths, you probably have said, "Oh, she will ask me the dream again."
And I have to meet you, Dr. Divya. At times, it is so scary. I just feel like running away from you. You are going to start with that. And Dr. Shraddha, I don't know if she's watching this. My goodness, the kind of persistence, where do you get it from? And the composure as we are freaking out all. I don't think the tiger stresses me out. My adrenaline and cortisol gets fired with the questions from Dr. Divya on the dream. And in that dream, when the detail happens, but please complete your point.
So the dreams, because they, and especially that's why we tell our patients that the dream, that if you feel you don't remember dreams, right? Actually, what happens is we often wake up and we remember the dream so vividly that we feel we will never forget it, right? So we say, "Abhi to bhool hi nahi sakte." I will tell Dr. Divya tomorrow. You go to the loo, drink water, open the door for the doodh wala, and the dream is clean wiped out. It's like कोई तुमको याद दिलाता ना, एक word याद दिलाएगा तो you'll remember the whole dream. But कौन याद दिलाएगा? Because it's that window period, right, between sleep and awake, where the automatic and the conscious brain are actually both alert and aware of each other at the same time. It is that rare moment when दोनों equally जगे हुए हैं. नॉर्मली अगर हम इस पे अटेंशन देते हैं तो इसको हम देख नहीं पाते, इस पे अटेंशन देते हैं तो इसको देख नहीं पाते, बट यहाँ पे हम दोनों को देख पाते हैं. And if we put our attention and remember that dream for those few moments as soon as we wake up, they will give us a window into that childhood visual circuit that has got imprinted, at least part of it, and that's causing a effect later on. So these would help in homeopathy, would help you as well. If you have such dreams which don't make sense and you just hold the visuals of those dreams, one day you'll be doing something and suddenly you'll say, "Oh, now I understand that. It came from my childhood. और तभी वो हुआ था." Until now, you had not remembered that at all. It was clean as if, because this part of the brain didn't remember it. And the memory of that event will take you towards healing by itself without a remedy, homeopathy, or without anything else. Right? So, putting attention on the dream and then doing nothing about it. Just notice it, remember it, let it be there as a visual. Remembering the automatic brain works on our five senses. So one moment when you're fully in your five senses, you might be cooking something, कुछ tasty खा रहे होगे, you say, अरे अभी मुझे वो dream का meaning समझा. And with that meaning will unlock some gadbad that happened, some silly doll that got stuck with some fear response, break that circuit and take you one more step towards freedom, the true potential, and your highest possible immunity.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think it's been a treat for all of us. I think some of us have been able to watch it live, but I think it'd be worth for many of us to come back and watch what you've said and, even practice. I think, so this resource will be shared on the YouTube channel of the AHA movement. This was episode 3. I just wanted to share that episode 4 is coming up on the 10th of July. It's Unraveling the Mystery of Multiple Universes with Guy Stephen Needler and Dr. Preeti Kohli, our very own at the AHA movement. And please do look out for this. If you've enjoyed this today, please do also find us on Facebook if you're on YouTube, or do like and subscribe to the channel. We expect to hopefully bring Dr. Divya back as well with another topic and another conversation. But we would love to, have you join us for these AHA conversations. The 4th episode is on the 10th of July. We do a lot of work on the lines that Dr. Divya talked about, and we would be happy to, for you to reach us. The information's there. Dr. Divya, it's been fabulous. Thank you. And please don't, you have not left us. Oh, sorry. I thought I shared this earlier, but all of us who have questions, I saw there were some questions that were unanswered, possibly about whether you can leave home if you're 70 plus, and a couple of other questions around food and homeopathy. So please feel free to reach out to Dr. Divya's clinic, and you can share information. You can get information there. There's also a cell phone number here. I'm going to see if there are some final comments.
Yeah. If there are any questions you feel we should take now, Ganesh, it's okay to take them.
Yes, I think we can take. Let me just take these banners out. And then we could take some questions.
So there was one question about whether people over 70 should step out. My advice is that people over 70 should wait this month because things are opening up. We definitely are seeing a higher number of cases, but as of now, we are still seeing the mild and the moderate. It's only in this next week that we'll actually know how the severe ones, whether the severe and the problem ones are going up to critical ones. So this month is a critical time where herd immunity should develop. Let the young, the immune, the ones who have stronger immunities go out and build this herd immunity. Let's protect our senior citizens and protect the ones whose immunity is low, because you're still at a sensitive and a vulnerable point. So definitely step out if you have to. Step out. Do not step out if you don't need to do at all. And for all of the young people, when we wear masks outside, it's not because we are scared or we are paranoid. It's because 30% of us could be asymptomatic because we are strong immune people. So we could have the infection, not realize it, and we could be infective to other people. One of the person we could be infective to could have a grandmother in the house who's immunocompromised, and the infection could affect her in a bad manner. So even if you don't have fever, in this month, and you're strong immunity wise, our wearing masks when we go outside is not for ourselves, it's but to protect the vulnerable and the senior citizens. So let's go ahead and keep doing that to protect them.
Thank you. And Dr. Divya, we'll take one more question. I'm bringing it up here. Do you mean everything that we are going through as an adult will always have a bearing on what we went through in the childhood? This is Balan from Muscat asking this question.
So when you say everything that we are going through, I'm presuming that when there are repeated patterns of behavior that happen in life, or our health problems that happen later in adult life, or our reactions to certain situations. You see, there can be a situation that's common to everybody, and yet all of us react in such a different individual way to that same situation. Why is that so? It's because the moment that situation happens in front of us, it's triggering inside us. So supposing a situation of anxiety happens outside, right? Everybody will get anxious for a little while and then it passes. But when it doesn't pass, it's because that anxiety, this circuit of anxiety, has triggered your childhood anxiety circuit. You see, that emotion of anxiety is the same. Whether you talk about it here or there, it's the same. So if that emotion was very intense and stayed for a longer time, it triggers your own childhood circuit. And now that anxiety and your response and your behavior and the chemical changes in your body come from what has happened in childhood rather than what is happening now. When I say what's happening in childhood, there are two aspects. Of course, one could be somebody's had a major trauma, emotional upset, and which they are aware of. But the more interesting one is those things, like I keep telling you, that have got linked to a scenario in life, which that scenario is gone. वो हो गया. I'm no longer afraid of dogs. Dog ने मुझे bite किया था, तब अब मेरे को dog का तो I have got over. Because I petted many dogs and now I've got a dog. तो अभी मुझे dog से डर नहीं है. लेकिन उस वक्त I was holding a doll. अब वो doll का डर अटका है and I have no idea. मुझे पता ही नहीं है, so I don't know what to do about it. I just respond to things that look like dolls or behave like dolls in a completely absurd, hysterical manner. So it is those unrelated things which we not consciously recognize that get imprinted along with a strong emotion or a strong reaction that end up resulting into behavior patterns that we then, yes, can project and create that reality outside, as well as on the disease symptoms or the organ that is getting affected.
Thank you. I think we're pretty much there. I know teachers like you and me can go on for a very long time, and I'm so happy that there are. Let's see if there is any final question. This is your last chance.
Yeah, I'm also just going to say one more thing, Ganesh, that I did another webinar on specifically on how our childhood imprints create disease patterns later in life. The entire focus of that webinar was that. It was on the science of war and immunity. So it is on, if it isn't, I'll make sure it is put on our YouTube channel, on Dr. Divya Chhabra's YouTube channel. So those who are interested in understanding that finer nuance of that can look at that. If we want to put it on the AHA one, I'm quite happy to do that as well. Or a link to that on the AHA.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to add it. Thank you, Dr. Divya. Thank you, dear friends, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing many of you on another AHA conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganesh. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.